Everyone, in this video, I'm aiming to clarify for students the difference between relative and absolute links so that when it comes to submitting HTML-based work, you're not making mistakes. So the first thing to understand is that HTML is not like a Word document or a PowerPoint that you may be used to where you can put images into the Word document, you can save it as a file, you can put it on a USB, you can open it on any computer, and your images are there in the Word document. That is because those images are embedded into the file. HTML does not work like that. HTML is just a text file, and in that text file are instructions for the browser for where to go and find whatever images or other assets are needed to display the page. So that's the first key understanding. HTML is just text. There are no images in the HTML file, but the HTML file tells the browser where to go and find them. And that's key, is understanding there are two ways we can tell the browser where to find them. One is to use an absolute link where we tell the browser where to go onto the web, where an image or asset is served on the web on a web server. And the other is a relative link where we tell it where to find the image based on the current file that it's loaded. So we're going to have a look at those two now, and it'll become a bit more clear when we look at some examples of this. So I have a HTML file here with just 5 lines, 2 image tags, 2 caption tags, and a break between. So if I was to load this file now, you'll see that you get the captions and nothing else. So let's just say I want to put in an image. Aside from the fact I make sure that my image is cleared for use under Creative Commons or whatever. Common way to do that, you Google or you find the image wherever. You're going to either copy the image address or open it in a new tab, and that will give you the address up here. So this is an absolute address, and it's easy to tell the difference between an absolute and a relative address because the absolute address will always have the HTTPS, the full web address here with the protocol at the front. Now, that's all well and good. Also, a tip for troubleshooting: if you have a website where the image is not displaying, like here, and you get this broken link, what you can do is you can right click and you can click open image in new tab and just have a check of the address to make sure it's correct. You might have copied or pasted or typed it in wrong, or you might think you have an absolute address where you have a relative or something like that. So it's a little troubleshooting tip. So I'm going to fix this, and you'll see now my image is here using an absolute link. Now, the downside of having an absolute link is if someone decides to take the image off their server, change their web address name, or if you are submitting it to an examiner who's not online when they're correcting your work, the image will not appear and you'll get that broken image icon. So it's really best practice when you're submitting websites and projects that all your images should be accessible offline, and all your assets. So to do that, you need to save the image. And it's really important that you make a website for all your assets. And by assets, I mean images, file, HTML pages, etc. So I've got a website folder here. I've got my index and my Rhino. And now I'm going to show you the difference in using a relative link. So relative links are very straightforward when the files are in the same folder together. All you need to do is enter the file name. So in this case, it's rhino.jpg. And I'm going to save that. And I am going to reload my page. Now you'll see I have 2 Rhino images. One is an absolute link. The other is a relative link. The code is different, but the result is identical because all you're doing is you're taking the image from 2 different sources. So if I was to view this page offline, the top one will break because my web browser will no longer have access to that one online. So that's something to think about. Now, also, what's important to know is that if you start moving files around or renaming them, you are going to have to remake your links here. And I'm going to show you some things about relative links that are of interest. So what you might do in standard is that if you've got a lot of images on your website, you're not going to have them all in the same folder as the index file. Okay, we would call this normally the root folder. You would make a subfolder called images, or even some more subfolders again, depending on how many images you have. Now, when I do that, something interesting happens. It breaks the link. And it breaks the link because the browser is looking for Rhino in the same folder as the index file because it's relative to it. So it starts off here and relatively beside it, and it doesn't exist. So if you have it in a subfolder, you need to put in the name of the subfolder with a slash, and then that will fix your link here, and it's working again. Now, what if the reverse is true? What if I move the index back in here into the images folder? Will that break it again? Yes, it will, because now it's no longer beside it. What if I wanted to move the Rhino page up to the root of the website and have the index page in a subfolder. How would you address that? Whoops. I can't find the file in Notepad anymore. I'll just drop it in there again. And if you're trying to find something that's in a folder above the current folder, a parent folder where the web page is, you need to put in a dot dot slash, and then that will fix the link again. So dot dot slash means go out of the current folder up to the parent folder. So in this case, the index file is in the website folder or the images folder. It goes out of the images folder and into the root folder to find it. If you're going into a subfolder, once again, you type in the name of the folder with a / in there. Okay, so if you're doing online HTML editing, like in Replit here, similarly, you can do the same thing. And the way you would do it is here I have the relative link for the Rhino in here. And you'll notice when I run this, the relative link doesn't work because I don't have the Rhino file here. So I'm going to upload that Rhino file that I downloaded a while ago into my Replit repository. And there you go. It now works. So provided I have everything relatively linked, when I go file and I download my website as a zip and I open it again, everything will work. If I have everything under absolute links, the images will work provided you have internet access and provided whoever was hosting those images hasn't changed their name or moved them. So that's something to consider. And that's why it's really good practice from the start if you can get into the habit of taking all your images and assets into the one folder or into a subfolder and have them using proper relative links, and then you're guaranteed that your website will be very robust and reliable. Now, certain things like Scratch projects or microbit projects where you embed things that come from the website, so you embed code like a Scratch project, that's not possible to have relatively linked. You could download the Scratch file and link it that way, but if you're embedding content that relies on another server to play the content, then you can't relatively link that because the other server is doing the job of playing it. But certainly for images and any other links and files, likewise, a key thing would be for your menu. With your menu, you definitely want to link to other web pages using relative links and not absolute links, because if you move your web address, the absolute links will all break, whereas the relative links will always work.